All right. Thank you, Rocklore, for your support. It means a lot. Hello, everyone. I am Plamplets, and I will be walking through uh, a box on playground practice named RubyDome. Before we dig into the box right away, I thought it would be good to introduce myself to those who don't know me yet. And I prepared a little slide here. I am Lennis Levanton, better known as Plants. I am a student mentor. I initially went for my OSCP 2020 January or around that time. And for absolutely unfounded reason and confidence, I thought I could do it in 30 days. And of course, I could not. I realized what a mistake it was. I stepped back and tried to come up with a strategy so that I can eventually achieve the certificate. And so I did a lot of other boxes and I practiced my skills. I did a numerous amount of capture the flag boxes and I gained my skills. And I came back to Pen 200 in last year, January, to try it again. And that turned out successfully. I finally got my USCP March last year. And that was my Pen 200 journey. Now I am going through Web 300. I like web application related stuff. And so that pushed me to enroll in Web 300. A personal hobby, I like Kirby. Some of you already are mentioning and already know, I like Kirby. Here's one of the plushes I have. And I listen to metal music. I also, of course, like growing plants and raising them, and I love them. I love seeing them bloom and grow from this tiny little seed. Now, with that, we will start with the box walkthrough. This machine is available on our platform, Playground Practice, not Play. It is named RubyDome. Of course, we have to connect to VPN first. Please make sure on the portal you are connected to VPN before you launch the machine. It is indicated by the green light here. And I will start the machine and wait for it to boot up. What I did here is Control Z and the command BG to put this operation in the background. It says the instance was started and we've been given the IP address for this machine. We will start with our typical scan, but to make a better use of time, I'd like to start with only a few scanning, only a few ports. We'll try 10, see what happens. The result came back really fast because we are only scanning 10 ports. this argument with a number specifies the top most commonly used ports, and Nmap scans these top, in this case, 10 ports. Here we see everything else closed but SSH on port 22, the default port for SSH. And we are not really getting anything else here. Now, we could, in theory, technically play with that service SSH, but we don't really have a solid any ground to work with. We don't have a list of usernames to potentially brute force for a valid password. We don't have a potentially valid password or a list of passwords to brute force for usernames. We have absolutely nothing. And in this kind of situation in capture the flag boxes, as well as for real engagements, you don't want to be too disruptive when you are testing a target. And so you wouldn't really start brute forcing SSH just as soon as you see. We will perform a bit more thorough scan than just top 10 ports and see what we get. Also, before I do that, to make it a bit easier for us, I will store this IP address string in a variable IP. We can call it with a $sign and the name of the variable. Now with that, what we can do is, instead of constantly every single time we have to give it the IP address, we can just use a variable name with a $sign. It's easier to remember that way, in my opinion. We'll do 100. Let's see what happens. So you can see the difference. It's not reporting any closed ports at this point because I requested 100 ports to be scanned, and it would flood our terminal if all these ports were to come back and, everything closed. So that's why it functions this way. Now, if there are what it considered as too many ports, it only tells you the open ports, which we got one more besides SSH. Port 3000 is open and it says PPP. I don't know what that is, so we can do a more thorough scan here. I will go with, now that we know the port, we can do what ports are open, we can do more thorough scan. We can specify the ports with a -P and 22 and 3000. And we'll give it the IP address. Now, if I do this, it will come back just same as this. Now, I'm going to use this flag A. I'll run it first and explain what it does later. Right after the scan finishes. So now it is giving us a bit more detailed information. It is telling us the version information of OpenSSH. And for port 3000, it is now telling us it is actually HTTP. And the web server, it seems like, is webbrick, HTTPD, the version information, and seemingly this web server is written in Ruby. So coming back to here, the nmap command, you will encounter something like this multiple times. If you say you are looking at a walkthrough of a box online, then if the writer wrote, run this command, and you might find yourself thinking, well, what does that do? And instead of explaining every single tag I use, I thought it would be better to teach how to search for the information on your own, because most likely going through Pen 200 or anything else, you will have to find that information on your own. And it is faster if you can do it that way. So how to go on about that is there is the help flag. It lists many options that you can give to Nmap. But the A shows up right here, so we know what it does. It enables operating system detection, version detection, script scanning, and traceroute. Assume it just so happens that this is not conveniently right here near the bottom, then we would have to dig through all this information to find what that does. And that wouldn't be very time efficient. How you can find something like that is using the help and the help command with another command grep, and you can search for that specific string. Now, if you do it here, like just like this, normally you can find a specified string without anything. So let's say user. It gives you back all the lines that has this string specified. But if we were to do -a, it doesn't like it. It says option requires an argument. That is because -a is an argument for grep on its own. This option is for this command, and that's for the mmap command. How we can fix this is wrap it up in single quotes. So we have a question: how is man nmap different from nmap -help? I think man gives a lot more information than just the help option. It is more detailed and it gives you more information, and it has a lot of search functions and stuff like that, so that you can find the information you're looking for more efficiently. The way I like to do it is help, because it's less information to work with. And I personally, most of the time when I'm using a tool, I was able to find the information I am looking for with help. That's why I use it, but you're free to use whatever of your choosing. Now, I gave a single quote and he didn't like it. Grep, so sometimes there are some special characters. A single quote would be another one, because I am using single quotes here. So certain characters need to be escaped. And so if I escape that hyphen with a backslash, it does give me exactly what I'm looking for immediately. Going back to our scan result, we have port 22 and 3000 open. I'm going to copy this part and create a text file. You can use any text file of your choice. I'll use mousepad for this walkthrough. I personally normally use Obsidian, but I know there are others out there who prefer some other text editors, not Obsidian. I thought it would be easier for all to look and replicate if I use just a very basic default, Kali default text editor. I'll name it nmap, and I'll paste the scan result here. I'll skip these entries because of that A flag. It is telling us that the target operating system is Linux. I agree. I personally use Obsidian, but I know others prefer other note-taking tools. I'll save this file. So we have port 3000 open, and that is hosting HTTP. We can go right ahead there and see what it is hosting. I'll put this in the background. I can still interact with it. Was it 188.22? Okay. And you shouldn't forget the port number here. It says RubyDome HTML to PDF. From just without thinking about anything else, just from looking at this, we can kind of make an educated guess that it is something about turning HTML pages into PDF files, perhaps. Just to test this, we'll just try google.com. And we'll see what happens. It is kind of taking longer than I expected. Probably turning this into a PDF file takes some time. Hello and welcome. Notepad++, I used to use it, but switched to Obsidian. Something came back. I'll enlarge this browser. Let's see. So it is saying PDF kit and improper, a bunch of letters, exit status at /PDF. Now we should pay attention to whatever is going on the web browser. So if we look at the URL, it went to /PDF, and it looks like it tried to use that API or whatever it is, and it failed. This is not a typical web page that you will find. You'll find this whenever you are testing a web page and something unexpected happened. Here is the backtrace, and it is telling us some information. This was a post request. We can see it here. There is no cookie data. It tells us the variable and the value for it. That is what we gave this web application, so we can safely assume, which we can confirm later on Burp Suite, that whatever we put into that text box goes into this URL parameter for this post request. Now, it is giving us a lot of information. You're never expected to know every single piece of information it's giving you. However, if there is anything out of ordinary, something weird, then you should, hopefully you can find that out and point it, and you can turn it into something useful that will give us some more access on the system. It is giving us a bit more information if we go down below. So we know this is a post request. Command failed. And if we look at this error message, which is same as this here. It is telling us command failed, and it's actually giving us the exact command that's running on the backend. This is the underlying command. If we make a post request to PDF with the URL parameter, give it a value, then it goes into here within these double quotes, and it tries to execute this command. It is running this binary, which looks like a PDF generator of some sort. It's turning, as it said in the previous page, turning HTML page into a PDF file. And it has a lot of options. It's defining some margins, and it's encoding it with UFT8. This is the page we gave it, and we can never be sure until we look into what it is, but I can kind of assume that it is outputting the file as that page.pdf. Now, what we can do here, there are several things. We can actually try to escape these double quotes and try some manual command injection, because this entire command is being run in a bash shell by the system. So if we can somehow escape these double quotes and may issue another command to complete this part and write another command after closing this double quote, then we might be able to get a command injection. Before we dig into all of that, let's try to see what this is first. Normally, if an error message throws at you something like something and colon and some error message, I think this is a common, it's not like the developers must to use this format or anything, but I found it that this is a fairly common practice for developers. This is most likely the name of this technology. Here we can also see pdfkit.rb. From that, we can know it's a Ruby script. We can copy it and paste it in our browser. The result shows up immediately. It is a JavaScript PDF generation library for Node in the browser. Okay, so now we know what is in use in the web server. Now, a question for the audience: does anyone have any idea what we can do with this information, with what we have found so far? I'll wait for an answer for a bit then. So ANG31D said, look for version and known vulnerabilities, and there are some other suggestions. Ooh, the chat's going up real fast. Try to escape, yep. Known exploits. Search for known CVEs. So that seems to be the most popular option here. So let's go with that. We'll search for the exploit for this. Also, we could try to fuzz a few other pages. You're right. That would be an option. and try server-side request forgery? Yes, because this is sending a request to arbitrary external pages such as Google.com. We could try to identify if the target is vulnerable to server-side request forgery. Possibilities for including file content. Yeah, there'll be also a valid choice here. Also, the URL is being included in the command line. Yeah, that's also a valid strategy because it is taking seemingly without any filtering. We could test that and find out, say, give it just a double quotes and try to see if it has any kind of filtering whatsoever. Server-side request forgery. So just from the name, without thinking about anything technical, you are making a forgery, which means you are creating something fake and it's happening server-side. So request forgery, meaning you are forging a request and from the server side. So what it is you are making the web server to send an arbitrary request to external other pages. So that could be something like if I host something like this, and then if I can get a target to talk back to me, or yeah, internal. So let's say in Active Directory set, let's say this machine is publicly accessible and this is not, but they are connected. This is not publicly exposed, but this one is. Then if this target is vulnerable to server-side request forgery, you can get it to talk to this machine and get you some data out of this publicly not available machine. Not very sure if I'm explaining this very well. Making something vulnerable, then feeding it to the server. Kind of. I don't think that exactly describes it. Fume, if you could explain server-side request forgery a bit better than I did, that'd be great. In the meantime, I'll continue with our assessment here. Oh, okay. Some of our first suggestions, as well as seemingly the most popular one, was to search for known exploits. So here I will write down, if you are using a Markdown supported note-taking app, you can do something like a sharp that makes it a heading and HTTP. In fact, that's actually how I normally do it. For now, because it's just a text file, I'll go ahead as is. HTTP, give it the port name too, because if I just write HTTP, I won't know where it is if I'm just looking at the heading. I'll write 3000 HTTP and say PDF kit in use. Now let's see, as suggested, what we can find on PDF kit. Vulnerabilities. Something does show up, command injection, as some of us suspected. Yeah, command injection, and it's giving us the CVE number. I'll go down a bit more. This one is probably listing vulnerabilities for PDF kit. There is also this GitHub page. I'll open it and see what it has. So it looks like at least this one is also arbitrary code execution. Okay, so there is at least one known vulnerability and potentially many exploits for it. Oh, is this? Oh, okay. I thought for a sec that was PDF Kit's GitHub, but I guess not. Okay, so the version there, it is specifying 0.8.7. We can go back to PDF Kit's page and see what the latest version is, which you can often find in download or sometimes if you are going at it on the target web server, then you can sometimes find the version information in README as well. Not here. So I clicked on source code and it redirects me to PDF Kit's GitHub page. And it looks like the latest version is 0.14, which the vulnerable version to command injection seems to be 0.8.7. That is very so our target's PDF kit in use would have to be quite vulnerable. Apparently, it affected all the lower versions. So it would have to be quite outdated for it to work. Regardless, it is worth trying, especially because there are a couple of reasons. This is OLED, no matter how likely or unlikely. This is some information we can work with. And the fact that there are known vulnerabilities and exploits, it doesn't take much to try the exploit and see what happens. And if it's not going to work, don't try it like 5 hours and try to make it work. But it is something worth trying as our first attempt. Webalizer is pretty good for finding versions. That is correct. When I was testing a lot of stuff, I always had it installed, and it doesn't give you the information 100% of the time because some applications will be just custom made and there won't be any public information about it. So it's not 100% reliable, but it still does indicate a good bit of if something is in use, what versions are in use. Now that we know there is a publicly known exploit, we can also try to look into exploit database there, or we can also try to just run search exploit and find out what shows up. So the same version as we found, it is seemingly the same vulnerability. So when you look for something on search exploit, and if you want to, how I used to do it was I would run a find command and blah blah blah, type all that name or whatever, and put that in and try to find where it is and copy it that way with CP full path and here. But you don't have to. You can just give it the M argument and I believe just the number, give it the number. Yeah, that copies it to the current directory you are in successfully. Yeah, before I knew this, I used to just constantly get the full path of that and copy and paste the entire full path and whatnot. It was horrible. This makes it much easier. One thing I forgot to do, I will move these files to a folder. We'll name it the same as the machine, RubyDome. I should probably close this and open it again. That text mousepad. Sure. Okay. So Known vulnerability. Now, this is not guaranteed to work because we don't know what version is in use exactly. That's the whole point of trial and error. Try it and see what happens. If it works out, great. That's all it takes to gain a foothold. Or if it is running as root, you will get a root shell. Or if not, we can start looking for some other possibilities. We could also try and give it this self-localhost as URL input as a local file inclusion and see if it reveals the. That's actually true. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah, because it is clearly hosting a web application HTTP service, and so we could try to make it access itself and see what happens. That's also a valid strategy. Thank you for pointing that out. Oh, apparently it wasn't. I wasn't the only one to get the full path, copy it and paste it. Good to know. There is also X to view the script. That's neat. Let's try it. I'm curious now. Oh, so it's just okay, cool. Interesting. So now that we have identified this and this exploit here, we can. It is always recommended that you review the script no matter what it is, just in case it doesn't do anything to your system. I've heard the story of somebody just downloading and running a script and it has something not too horrible, just something malicious or whatever, then their entire system got borked and stuff like that. Always take caution when you are downloading and running scripts. Because of that, we'll open it with just any text editor. You choose your favorite text editor and see what it has inside. From the line number 1, we know it is written in Python 3. You have to pay attention to this because if some exploits are old, and it makes sense because a lot of software in use, they can be outdated and still vulnerable to known exploits. And so some exploits are written in Python 2 and some other Python 3. And you don't want to mix that up and try to run an exploit written in Python 3 with Python 2 and vice versa. They have some differences in syntax and they don't like, I don't want to say they don't like each other because it's the successor of, because 2, 3, but it's not going to like it too much. You want to make sure you are running a Python 3 script with Python 3 and the other way around as well for Python 2. We'll go down and see what it has. It's importing some stuff. I am expecting it to be colorful because it defines a whole color class and red, gold, blue, green, or default, which would be white. This part looks like it's just printing out the banner with a lot of color applied. So on the note of reading the script, I came across something funny. I downloaded what was it, WinPeas or LinPeas? One of those. Downloaded it and ran it on the target system, and it said always make sure you read the source code. I thought, well, it's LinPeas, right? and I did verify it was a legitimate LinPeas GitHub and whatnot, but it still stopped me and said, make sure you read the source code. Oh, okay. It just printed that message and it wouldn't run. I had to go and modify it a little. I don't know if that's still the case, but one of the versions, previous versions, definitely did that to me. I remember. Now, this is telling us the usage of the script. So this is how you can run it. And we can see here too, it is running with Python 3. It has 5 arguments. All right. Roughly looking through the code, I don't see anything malicious. So we'll go ahead and try running the script and see what happens with it. It's just printing out a lot of messages. The main method there. So it looks like it takes a command with C. It also has some kind of reverse shell mode, whatever that is, we'll find out. Web command and web shell. Don't know what the difference is yet, but we'll find out as we play with this script. Extended Carl. That's pretty funny. So I don't see anything particularly malicious, so we'll go ahead and run it and play with the script. As I said, running with Python 3. If you run it just plain without any arguments whatsoever, as we saw in the script, it tells us how to use the script. Sometimes this is the case, sometimes it's not. If it's not, you have to look into the source code and find out how to use this or any other script for the matter. So the first usage, this strikes me odd because if we were to just do that, what is it using the command against? Is it my system or is it the target system? But it doesn't know the target system. That's why it has some additional arguments. I don't know what it will. We can read the source code and find out, but this likely won't work because it doesn't know about the target. We are not telling it anything about the target. So we'll move from that first command. This one says local IP, local port. There was something about shell, and this is S, so something related, but still with this, it doesn't know about the target IP address, target port, anything. So that also likely won't work. And now we'll be looking into some, I think this is also a common practice. They will indicate scripts, they will indicate optional parameters with some kind of square brackets here, or it could be anything really, but I've seen I've seen that script writers like to differentiate, make a note of a difference. So in this case, it's square brackets. And it can take, now there is the target IP or target web app. This is using just index.html. And we can give it a P for parameter, which is likely the parameter we found somewhere here, params and URL. It's also up here somewhere, I believe. Yeah, there. Variable URL value HTTP google.com. That's what you gave it. So we will try this one first and see what happens. Now, if you were to just copy and paste this one, it won't work. Why? It's same as never just download and run the script, but also never just copy something and paste it and expect it to work, because every environment is different. In this case, I have to give it the target IP or target web application and the location. Essentially, it is being run on port 3000. So if I were to copy and paste it, it won't work. But the most important thing to note in that case, that's not my this is not how my file is named. It's this. And so if I were to copy and paste that, it'll say this file does not exist, because it doesn't. So we'll go ahead and pull up to that point and give whatever it is taking. So command will do something simple, ls, and w for the target, so I can copy and paste it from there. I am using PDF instead of without it, because this is sending a post request to this /PDF instead of the index. And we'll give it the parameter, which is URL, and see what happens. Okay, well, it tells us the payload. So presumably this went into the URL parameter. %20 is a URL encoded character of space. I guess that is necessary for whatever reason for this payload to work, for command injection. Wrap custom command in quotes if it has spaces. Okay, that is important to know. And this is our target. Our parameter URL and payload sent to website and exploit performed action. But we are not getting anything. What I suspect, we can have two guesses here. One, it's not vulnerable, actually. It is just printing out whatever message. It might, if the exploit fails, some exploits will tell you, oh, the target is not vulnerable or anything like that. But not always. That's not always the case. Always use your own intuition and try to hypothesize and figure out what's going on. So here we can build two theories. One, it's not vulnerable. Two, it is successful, but there is no output for us to confirm anything. In this case, anyone have any idea and would like to share what we can do to confirm if it in fact is or is not vulnerable? Debug the code more. That's a good call. We can always look into the code itself, source code itself of this script, and try to see what's actually going on. That's a valid strategy, which I have to do all the time because I am taking Web 300, and that is primarily it. Reading code to see what's going on. I have fun with it, but sometimes it can be daunting. It is a valid strategy, of course. I can ping my box as the command. Yes, that is correct. We can, because it's taking a URL, I can host something and try to make it call, make a call to me. Change my payload to connect back to a listening port, assuming the script is blind and won't give output or indication it is functioning. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So that is one way to confirm. Not sure if there are other ways. I'm pretty sure there are other ways to confirm, but that is my preferred way of doing it. Try reverse shell or wget and or curl your server. That is, yes, very much valid. So before we try to pop a shell, we want to make sure it can in fact call to us, because if we just go ahead and try reverse shell payloads right away, it can fail for numerous reasons, and it is harder to debug why the payload is failing. And we would have to test kind of blindly, try a lot of just different reverse shell payloads and try to figure out what's going on. It can be very time consuming. That's why it is nice to, as Deadpool pointed out, TCP dump for ICMP, and we call it. That's a very much valid strategy, using a ping command and on the server, get it to run a ping command, and we'll be running TCP dump. Then we can see if the target system is calling us. That's also the way I do it, is just hosting a Python HTTP server. The reason for this is I think ICMP, I don't remember the command. Of course, I can always Google it and find out, which is not a problem, but this I already know. It's a very common command, used very often. So I'll host a HTTP server and try to get it to call back to me. Command goes in here. Yeah, if it works totally. And I always try to inform others. Just try to find whatever works for you and stick to it. As long as it works, it works. You don't have to do what others do. You don't have to do anything. Just find your own way and stick to it. Let's try to issue a command, say curl. So here is something funny. I didn't know this for a long time, for about 3-4 years. Now say like, oh, I don't remember my tunnel 0 VPN IP address. And I would always issue IPA or ifconfig to see my own IP address, and you don't have to because it's here. It took me more than 3 years to realize it's right there on the top right screen. And now everybody knows my deepest shame. Deepest shameful secret. I never saw it. I know it's there. It's right there, but I never saw it. So yeah. When I realized that it's right there, I froze for like 5 minutes. So really? I wasted all that time. So I ran the command with curl, and that is my IP address. Nothing came back. Python HTTP server. Oh, it is. Yep, you're right, port 8000. So unless specified otherwise, which you can specify, it is running on port 8000. So I have to specify the port here. Now we have a callback. So this confirms the remote command execution vulnerability. That is our target's IP address, and it is telling us, oh, that thing accessed our page, get to just the index page. So now we have confirmed the command execution. Now we can move on to a variety of reverse shell payloads to see if anything will work. And if I remember this correctly, there was some mention of shell. There we go. Reverse shell mode, provide the local IP and port to generate reverse shell payload with. I believe also there were some 2 things about shell something. So shell, and there's web shell. Reverse shell sent to the target website mode. That sounds very much like what we want to do, so we'll go with that. I'll run the script just as is again to remind myself. So the last one, it takes my IP address, my port, and target. That is, this part is same as what we did. and it doesn't even accept the command, we can safely assume it has the command already there that will change just based on our given local IP address and port. We'll try that. And if it doesn't, nothing is guaranteed. We don't know if it'll work, but for numerous reasons. But we can always try and see what happens. That is my favorite method of doing things. Just try it and see will this work? No, don't just try it and see what happens. If it works, great. If not, you can try other things as well. So it is asking for my IP address, which I can find up there, 228. And we'll use 443. It is recommended if you are trying to gain a reverse shell, you want to use commonly used ports, 22 for SSH, 80, HTTP 443 for HTTPS, because some systems will have the outgoing traffic to arbitrary ports blocked, things like 4444 then might be blocked. So the target machine won't be able to talk to any other machine on port 4444. But because 80, 443, 22, those things are very common, it is likely, I'm not saying always that's the case, but it is likely that is not going to be blocked. Yeah, that appears to be my VPN IP 228. All right. And it is asking for the target IP address. Okay, and parameter URL. And of course, we have to set up a listener. And we'll run this and see what happens. So it ran this command. It looks like some kind of Ruby. That's gotta be a Ruby reverse shell command. Okay. And it is as colorful as we thought it would be. So we have a callback. Okay. Let's see. Who am I? Andrew. So Andrew is running the web application. Okay, cool. Now we have a reverse shell. And as is, this is horrible because let's say I am typing some long, complicated command. And I can't go back. If I made a typo there or whatever, I can't go back. So I don't like working with this shell. And one way to do it is upgrading the shell. And that can be done with calling Python solution to make a typo. Only if I could just not make a typo. I do it all the time. So we are going to upgrade the shell. And Deadpool points out which Python 3. Yes. So here's the thing. Let's think we are Googling how to upgrade the reverse shell. And you come across a random blog. And if we see the command, if you can find it somewhere. Method 1, Python PTY module. That's something you can use to upgrade the shell. It won't work. This is, again, why we never want to copy and paste everything. This won't work. Python not found. Python supposedly does not exist on this system. And as I mentioned a little bit about Python 2 and 3, Python doesn't exist, but Python 3 might. That's why we'll do something like which Python. doesn't exist. Okay, how about Python 3? That does exist. So we want to tailor whatever we get out of our Google search and try to tailor it for this environment, which doesn't have Python, but does have Python 3. So now this is still kind of unstable. It does look different, but it is still unstable. We can do Control Z here and put that in the background. Actually, you don't have to put it on the background. I'll do stty raw echo, and I don't know what it is exactly. I can, of course, Google it and find out. This is a commonly used command to upgrade your shell. It changes something about the terminal and how it outputs things or something. I don't know exactly, but if you are curious, you can always Google it and find out. And I'm going to issue another command to bring that suspended process to foreground. After the command and hitting enter, we are back here, and now we can just go front and back. It will even autocomplete, I think. So let's say app and hit tab. Yeah, it does autocomplete things. All right, cool. Now that we are in, what's everyone's favorite thing to do when you have an initial access on capture the flag box or any of the sort? Sudo L, good call, good call. Root privilege escalation stuff, looking for credentials. All those are valid. Yeah. What I celebrate. Okay, that's actually the answer. We have to celebrate with new access, so that is a good sign. Cat, that's their password. Yeah. To see valid users, and if we have some usernames to work with, we can potentially, seeing how SSH was open, we can potentially perforce it. Check for wget and upload limpies. Yeah, other than wget, there are so many ways you can upload and run limpies. But yeah, that's definitely one way to do it. I think that's my goal to just, there are other like easier, faster things to do, sudo L or stuff like that, but limpy is generally a good idea. Check for processes running as root. That's also a very valid strategy. You might be able to, if on the system permissions are configured a little off, you can replace something that's frequently run by the root user, then you can successfully gain a shell. Oh, file transfer. I guess it is actually underrated because I see when I was going through Pent 100, if oh, the target doesn't have a wget, so I can't transfer it. You can. There are so many ways you can transfer files, SSH or hosting a web server with Python, and it is important to know. And we have a great video about file transfer by another content developer. I will put that in our Discord server later for everyone to watch if you'd like. Now, let's see. We'll try uploading limpies and see what happens with that. Gotta make sure it doesn't tell me something like, oh, your car insurance is expired. There should. Is it? Well, why is it like left to right reverse? There's the release page. Okay. Is it just me or is it like left right? The menu the pane, whatever it's called, usually on the right side, no? I think it is. Although I guess that can be changed. So there's the linty script. Oh, didn't mean to download it. Wanted to look at the source code first, but okay. I'm going to move that from download to my current directory, RubyDome. All right, so just to make sure it doesn't do things like, oh, read the script first. All right, it goes right into it. Okay, cool. Oh, GitHub changed the thing. Oof. That'll take me some time to adjust. Okay. We'll host a web server to transfer limpies over to the target system. Again, I almost just wget my app. No, check if it has wget first. It does. All right. I'll save it as p.bash. All right. We'll give it the executable permission, and we'll run the script. Pairs. That's already it already brought something. Okay, so it has sudo permissions. That's horribly misconfigured, but okay, we can take advantage of it. So with that very first thing that can be potentially of our interest, let's see what related thing it has. So here, when I was just starting out, this confused me a lot because all those things are kind of reported as vulnerable. But so here's the thing. Whenever I ran linpies and whenever I was stuck, I had no idea. I would run every single one of them. They don't always, odds are not very great that you should try all of them. I recommend exploring other vectors first and then come back to this if you are absolutely stuck and there's absolutely, you think, nothing going on. But I'd like to explore other possibilities before I move on to privilege escalation, local privilege escalation exploits. It is not in a container. It is running a bunch of things. That also. Oh no, that's I think that's standard. Network has some kind of more capabilities than other binary has. There is nothing in cron tabs except so it creates a report. If there is anything suspicious, it would appear like very obvious. Not, it shouldn't be like confusing like that, so to speak. Yeah, kernel exploits should be the lowest in priority. Yeah, it can completely bork the target and even legitimate exploits. It's really finicky. You'd have to revert it. I don't recommend it. So here we come to something funny. This user, Andrew can run this entire command. You can't omit it or you have to use this entire command with sudo. So up to this point, it's like very obvious because we can sudo good point. We can look it up and see what shows up. We'll see. We'll go to GTFO bins and see what shows up on Ruby, because that's the binary in use here. GTFO bins is really, really useful for a lot of privilege escalation related techniques. It has a lot of information. So if you look here, sudo, if the binary is allowed to run as superuser by sudo, it does not drop the elevated privileges and may be used to access the file system, escalate, or maintain privileged access. It is suggesting this command, and as usual, I'll show why copy and paste is bad. Copy that and paste this, see what happens. It asks for a password that we don't know, so it is already not working. And if you remember, that is not exactly the command we are allowed to run. We'll have to go sudo like this. And if I just run this as is, it'll run app.rb right here. That command will run this Ruby script. We can try to see what it has. It requires this and that, and it hosts on itself, port 3000. So since this is a Ruby file, we can, and we own this file and we have full permission to this file. We can get rid of it, write to it, execute it, everything. So how that relates to this is, as we saw earlier, Ruby has some reverse shell payloads, and we can probably replace this file since we have a full permission on this file as well as directory, because it's the user's home folder, and try to execute the script and see what happens. And if that succeeds, it will be, so if we put the Ruby reverse shell payload there, it will be run as root because we are running it with the sudo command here. And so the shell will pop as root. We'll see Ruby reverse shell. Wait, it has a, oh no, that's the same as what we, actually, okay, wait. So looking at this command, store a backdoor as a tree. That is a valid strategy too, yeah. So if you don't know what -e is, you can Google it, or you can run Ruby help and do what I introduced a little. It's sometimes -help, and some others take just H. I don't know which it is. And of course, try it and find out. Help. Oh, so it is help. Okay, let's see. Grab E. E command, one line of script, several E's allowed. All right, cool. So Ruby is running this command with this entire Ruby command. So we can put whatever is inside like you have to be careful with the quotes. So if there are double quotes in your string, you want to use single quotes for the echo command. And we'll override it to this file that we are allowed to run as sudo. Reverse shell, revshell.com, good point. It's really, really, I think when I was going through Pent 100, it was there, it was still a thing, but it wasn't as popular as it is now. And I liked doing things manually, so to speak. Not really, because I would still go on Google, look for, oh, reverse shell cheat sheet, and just not copy and paste, but copy and paste the template and tailor it to my own use. But it is very handy. It is very convenient. So now that we have overwritten that file, just checking for the command again, we are allowed to run this as sudo. So for that, and that pops the root shell. So never just something like, oh, sudo previously Ruby and copy the entire thing and paste it to on the target system directly. Always pay attention to the environment you are in, like Python didn't exist, but Python 3 exists and stuff like that. And pay attention to what's going on the target system and try to apply whatever you have found to the environment that you're in or the system. Oh, also, now I noticed I named it wrong. It should have been nodes. So we found no vulnerability, and there is no exploit, which was 512. That, and so if you ever, oh right, that's a good point. Take a backup always, just in case you do something wrong, and then you can't revert the target system back to its original state, and something breaks and you have to revert it, and we don't want to really deal with that. It's time consuming. It can be time consuming. So if before you modify any file, it is always recommended to create a backup. And that just doesn't go for boxes like this. Actually, when I'm working on something, my own script for Web 300, for example, I I learned it the hard way. I did something, and later I couldn't remember what I did, and it took me a lot of time to revert it back to my script's original working state. So it is great to always have a backup. So when writing my own notes, what I like to do is I'll just copy and paste the command, and you can write it as something like lhost, teleport, so that if you ever want to come back to the machine or any of the sort, you can come back to it and just easily report, figure out what you did, how you did it. And so if I was doing it on Markdown, that would be the heading number 1 and heading 2, and this will be another heading 1 and privilege escalation. Copy and paste the line, and probably copy paste from there. Now that's getting confusing with the heading. So I would probably get rid of that, or wrap it up in backticks so that it does show up as a code block. This would be how I would take my notes. I should have kept updating my notes, but I kind of forgot about it. First to walk through and whatnot. That wraps up my walkthrough on RubyDome. Thank you everyone for joining, and thank you for all your love and support. We plan to do more of walkthroughs like this. Please stay tuned for more on that, further future announcements. Thank you everyone so much. This was my first time walkthrough. I did one on Discord, but that was more of a smaller scale and whatnot. Oh yeah, that's right. I will put that video in our Discord server right away. Thank you, everyone. I hope you had fun. I hope you have the great rest of the day. Thank you, everyone.